Welcome to My Vaccine is Jesus. I wanted to make another quick addendum video regarding my Apologetics to the Jehovah Witness torture, stake, or cross video. And it's related to a recent comment I got, so let me read it to you. At My Vaccine is Jesus. Still the sign is above his head. Look at the picture. Nails are used for both hands and feet. They can also use 2 or more nails if you want in each hand. The point is the number of nails is not important. The original meaning of cross was this, according to Vine's dictionary, denotes primarily an upright pale, I guess he meant pole, or stake. For the prophecy in the Bible to be fulfilled, the original meaning of the cross, which is the upright pale, again I think pole, or stake, must be used instead of the later meaning of stauros or stavros. Here was my reply. The point is the number of nails is not important. So, I should listen to you and not Holy Scripture. Ridiculous and pathetic for someone who claims to believe the Bible. You should be ashamed of yourself. And what do I care about, what do I care what Vine's dictionary says? That should take precedence over inspired Holy Scripture. And what do I care about your personal Watchtower-inspired interpretation about Bible prophecy? Must be? I'll make a quick addendum video showing all kinds of Bible prophecies suggesting 2 beams and not 1 if you want, also suggesting 3 total nails used, 2 in hands, 1 in feet. Would you like that? So I'm going to do that now. This is all, again, from jw.org. This is the New World Translation. We're going to start in Genesis chapter 22, verse 13. This is the account of Abraham and Isaac. And remember, Abraham tells Isaac when he asks, "Father, where's the lamb?" Abraham says, "God will provide himself a lamb." And then, of course, the angel of the Lord appears, says, "Don't sacrifice your son," and a ram appears. Let's pick it up there in verse 13. You'll see the point in an account coming up in a little bit. Verse 13, Genesis chapter 22. At that Abraham looked up, and there just beyond him was a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. So just remember that account. Then we're going to go to Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. This is when Israel, Jacob, is blessing his 12 sons, and he gets to his 4th son, Judah. Verse 10. The scepter will not depart from Judah, neither the commander's staff from between his feet until Shiloh, which means Messiah, comes, and to him the obedience of the peoples will belong. So notice the 2 sticks. The scepter held between the hands, which is the king rulership. So picture the horizontal beam of the cross, right? Neither the commander's staff from between his feet. So picture a vertical beam sticking down. So the scepter referring to the horizontal beam, the commander's staff referring to the vertical beam, and notice the connection to the Messiah. 2 poles, 2 beams, 2 sticks, a scepter and a staff. Let's continue. Exodus chapter 17, verse 6. This is the Lord speaking to Moses. Look, I will be standing there before you on the rock in Horeb. You must strike the rock, and water will come out of it, and the people will drink it. Moses did so before the eyes of the elders of Israel. So he's asked by the Lord, he's asked by Jehovah, strike this rock. We know who the rock is, according to Paul's writings. The rock was Christ. So he strikes the rock once, and water comes out. That's Exodus chapter 17, verse 6. Then we go to Numbers chapter 20, verse 7. Then Jehovah said to Moses, take the rod and call the assembly together, you and Aaron your brother, and speak to the crag. This is rock. I'm not sure why it's translated as crag. It's again rock. Before their eyes, that it may give its water. And you will bring out water for them from the crag, the rock, and give the assembly and their livestock something to drink. So notice he's asked to speak to the rock. Verse 9, so Moses took the rod from before Jehovah just as he had commanded him. Then Moses and Aaron called the congregation together before the crag, the rock, and he said to them, hear now, you rebels, must we bring out water for you from this crag, this rock? With that, Moses lifted his hand up and struck the crag twice, the rock twice with his rod, and much water began to pour out, and the assembly and their livestock began to drink. So notice, this rock is Christ, and it's been struck 3 times with a rod. 3 hammered nails, 1 in the feet, 2 in the hands. 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 9, Absalom. Remember, Absalom was the son of David, who was an antithesis to Christ. What's Christ doing? He's gathering the kingdom to give up to his father. What did Absalom want to do? He wanted to take away the kingdom from his father, right? Anyway, 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 9. Absalom eventually found himself facing the servants of David. Absalom was riding on a mule, and the mule went under the thick branches of a large tree, and his head got entangled in the big tree. Does it remind you of the ram with his thorns? So that he was suspended in midair while the mule he had been riding kept going. So notice he's hanging from a tree by his hair. There's also something really cool here as well. Notice he's riding a mule. What's a mule a combination between? It's a combination between a donkey or an ass and a horse. What's interesting about this is in Zechariah 9 and in the accounts of the Gospels, when Christ first entered Jerusalem as a king, he was riding a donkey and an ass. Later in Revelation, when he comes again for total victory, he will be riding a white horse. Notice, first came with a donkey and ass, later came with a white horse. What's the mixture of the two of the mule? Maybe a coincidence, but interesting. But regardless, notice Absalom, the wicked son of David, who's trying to take the kingdom away from his father, the antithesis of Jesus Christ, is hanging in a tree from his hair. Picture back what I noted in Genesis chapter 22, and check this out, a few verses later. Verse 14. To this Joab, he was working with David, said, I'm not going to waste any more time with you, speaking to Absalom. So he took 3 spikes in his hand and drove them through the heart of Absalom while he was still alive in the midst of the big tree. Isn't this interesting? The wicked son of David, the antithesis of Jesus, is hanging on a tree, and how many spikes go through his heart? 3. Maybe like the 3 nails, the 2 in the hands, 1 in the feet, just like the rock. Ezekiel chapter 37. I'm going to quickly go through this, verses 1 through 10 over there, but just humor me, because this is the resurrection of the dead, the bodily resurrection of the dead. And I'm just showing this because you're going to see what comes right after this. So I'm going to read through this quickly. The hand of Jehovah was upon me, and by his spirit Jehovah took me and set me down in the middle of the valley plain, and it was full of bones. He had me passed all around them, and I saw that there were very many bones lying in the valley plain, and they were very dry. Why? They don't have moisture. What's that? The Spirit, right? The Spirit gives us moisture, regardless. He asked me, Son of man, can these bones come to life? To that I said, Sovereign Lord Jehovah, you're the only one who knows. So he said to me, Prophesy over these bones and say to them, You dry bones, hear the word of Jehovah. This is what the Sovereign Lord Jehovah says to these bones. I will cause life to enter you, and you will come to life. I'll put sinews and flesh on you, and I'll cover you with skin and put breath in you, and you will come to life, and you will have to know that I am Jehovah. Bodily resurrection. Verse 7, Then I prophesied just as I had been commanded, and as soon as I prophesied, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones began to come together, bone to bone. Then I saw sinews and flesh come on them. By the way, this is where that song, the hip bone's connected to the leg bone, comes from. Then I saw sinews and flesh come on them, and skin covered over them, but there was still no breath in them. He then said to me, Prophesy to the wind, prophesy, Son of man, and say to the wind, This is what the Sovereign Lord Jehovah says. From the 4 winds come in, O wind, and blow upon these people who were killed, so that they may come to life. Their bodies come to life. So I prophesied just as he commanded me, and breath came into them, and he began to live and stand on their feet, and they began, to live and stand on their feet in an extremely large army. Now this obviously doesn't directly point to the crucifixion. It does point to the resurrection of the dead. What's interesting, though, is look what happens a few verses later. 15. The word of Jehovah came again to me, saying, And you, son of man, take a stick, and write of it for Judah and for the people of Israel who are with it. Then take another stick. 2 sticks, 2 poles, 2 beams. Vertical beam, horizontal beam, the cross. Take the other stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel who are with him. Then bring them close to each other so they become just 1 stick in your hand. 2 sticks become 1 stick. When your people say to you, verse 18, will you not tell us what these things mean? Tell them, this is what the Sovereign Lord Jehovah says. I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel who are with him, and I will join them to the stick of Judah. I will make them 1 stick, and they'll become 1 in my hand. The sticks that you write on should be in your hand for them to see. 2 sticks, 2 poles, 2 beams, the cross. Zechariah chapter 11, verse 7. And I began to shepherd the flock, meant for slaughter in behalf, O afflicted ones of the flock. So I took 2 staffs, 2 sticks, 2 beams, 2 poles, and I called one pleasantness and the other union. And other translations still say beauty and bands. And I began to shepherd the flock. And I dismissed 3 shepherds in 1 month, for I became impatient with them, and they detested me as well. And I said, I will not keep shepherding you. Let the one who is dying die, and let the one perishing perish. As for those who are left, let them devour one another's flesh. So I took my stamp, pleasantness or beauty, and cut it up, breaking my covenant that I had made with all the peoples. When was the old covenant broken? So it was broken in that day, and the afflicted ones of the flock who were watching me knew that it was the word of Jehovah. And then I said to them, if it seems good to you, give me my wages, but if not, withhold them. And he paid me my wages, 30 pieces of silver. Where does this remind us? So we have 2 sticks and 30 pieces of silver being paid for them in some strange way. What does this refer to? You know what it refers to. Then Jehovah said to me, throw it into the treasury, the magnificent value for which they valued me. And that's exactly what Judah did. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw it in the treasure of the house of Jehovah. Then I cut up my second staff, the union, breaking the brotherhood in Judah and Israel. Very interesting. 2 sticks. Connection to the material of Christ on the cross. Verse 15. And Jehovah said to me, now notice this is another interesting thing, again about end times. Notice when the 2 sticks were mentioned, it was preceded by a prediction of end times, the resurrection of the dead. Check this prediction. I believe it's the prophecy of, again, end times, the beast, the beast out of the sea, possibly. And Jehovah said to me, now take the equipment of a useless shepherd, for I am letting a shepherd rise up in the land. He will not take care of the sheep that are perishing. He will not seek out the young or heal the injured or feed them that are able to stand. So Christ is the good shepherd. This sounds like an evil shepherd, kind of like an antichrist. And instead he devours the flesh of the fat one and tears off the hooves of the sheep. Woe to my worthless shepherd, who is abandoning the flock. A sword will strike his arm and his right eye. His arm will wither completely, and his right eye will go completely blind. And this, I'm not saying it is, but could be a prophecy of end times. The beast who gets wounded in the head and lives. So as you see, I really don't know what to say. The idea of you need one pole to line up with Bible prophecy. I don't know what you're speaking of, because repeatedly you see references to 2 sticks, 2 poles, 2 beams in Bible prophecy with in Old Testament prophets, and you see the context of what's happening as strong connections to Jesus Christ, his ministry, his execution, and end times events as well. So I pray I spoke truth and interpreted Holy Scripture correctly so that this discussion might have been a blessing to you, the listener. All truth comes from God. Any errors were my own. If it was a blessing to you, I would greatly appreciate it if you could like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Lord willing, we will meet again. May the Holy Trinity bless us all.